Hello there, Sir from M16 once again. This is more Bad Business gameplay, and I'm going to be talking about the new M16, which you can see the redesign on the screen right now. We're playing King of the Hill on Tides. This is a map that I really do enjoy, and especially on King of the Hill because it gives it some nice flow, it gives it a nice area to understand where people are going to come from and understand what they should do if they want to win. Most people on Bad Business don't really want to win, so that's not a big deal, but you know, it kind of gives you the basis to start your stalk and hunt to try and kill as many people as you can. So what did they do to this weapon? Well, if you remember the old version, I just made a video of the old version of the gun. It did kind of look a little... I'm not going to say it looked bad, but it did look very Robloxy in like a basic kind of way. It looked cute, very cubey, very squared, very kind of strangely soft in the areas where it's meant to have some detail, and they've gone in there and completely overhauled it and changed it in many ways. And I don't know if this was always going to be the way they did it, or if this was inspired by the Cold War betas and alphas, but you'll also notice that they no longer take off the carry handle at the top of the M16's body, and when they put the optic on it, which I hate. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing in the world. It's like in those movies in the 90s where they used to try and make something look super advanced and high technology and futuristic. They'd stick 900 scopes on it that you'd never use and give it like a flashlight and a red dot that couldn't even be powered without a battery up your sleeve. Like, they'd give it the most stupid attachments to make it look as if it was the year 2020, when in reality it was just you stuck a fucking ACOG on a pistol. It's retarded, right? I don't like that part of the design. I think it's ugly. I think it's stupid. They've not done that in the Special Forces for a long time. Like, I don't understand where it's coming from. It's obviously a stylistic choice, and that's fine, but I dislike it immensely. However, the gun model itself I think looks exceptional. I think whoever modelled it, it might be Ethan, one of the main devs, I think he did a fantastic job, whoever it was, and you can see that they took some time and they really wanted to make it just looking a bit more professional and a bit more welcome in a first-person shooter, and I love staring at this gun. And then of course the thing that came with it that I didn't realise was when they do this to guns, when they revamp them and redesign them and bring them up to the standard that Roblox, and I should say Roblox, Bad Business is at this moment, they also give you all the attachments for it, or the attachments that they seem to have kind of mirrored from the M4 but limited in some ways. And I love the idea of this. I love the idea of all the guns that this game has being able to have different ways to use them, different ways to spec them, different builds on all the guns, because it gives the game so much more life and so much more colour. But I do have an issue with it, because I have issues with everything, and that is that a lot of the attachments just seem to be copy-pasted from the ones already established, and I would have really liked to see some unique attachments specifically for these weapons, and I don't know if that's something they have planned in the future, where they can give it some kind of exclusive clip or exclusive stock or something that makes it the M16. Because as it stands, it's kind of like it's an M4 without some of the barrels, isn't it? That's kind of the thing. This one has a very small barrel, which is interesting, I guess. But I'd be definitely up for them going to town with it a bit more if they can find the man hours, or you know, if somebody can donate some man hours or something, because Bad Business is a fantastic game and it's just seen a swell of activity thanks to the Ready Player 2 event, and it would be really nice if, you know, there could be something to greet those players and hopefully keep them there. And if you're new to the game, there's tons to do, isn't there? That's the joy of being new. And the biggest influx of players on Bad Business are between level 0 all the way up to like the first Prestige, because if you meet somebody who's prestiged, they're actually part of the minority, not the majority. Most players on this game, they don't level that high, they don't stay that long. You know, there's a big turnout in and out, and maybe coming back every so often. I don't know if that's like a fault of not keeping engagement with how you've supported your brand and supported your game, or if that's just the way that Roblox works, because the more I get into this Roblox hole, I realise that there seems to be a lot of competition on the first-person shooter aspect of these games. A lot of people talk about a game called Arsenal, which I've looked at. A lot of people talk about Phantom Forces or PF, which I hear people talk about a lot, and it seems like everybody's kind of played them all to death and they're all kind of tired of them because they don't support them in the way that can add that longevity, especially if you're somebody that's got hundreds of hours in it. And they're all looking for the next shooter, they're all looking for the next big thing. And I think the next big thing could be Bad Business, you know, just with the right choices and the right areas to focus on, and the coming year is going to be seeing a lot of their hard work paying off because they're telling people to be patient. They're saying that they've got a lot in the works and it's going to be coming out, and if you're somebody that's been waiting, you know, every week for the last 2-3 years or however long the game's been going, it's probably quite frustrating to see things like a shop refresh, but at least you know that they're doing things and they're teasing things, and there's a bunch of maps that they've shown, there's a bunch of attachments for weapons that they've shown. Like, there's a lot of potential to build off, and the idea of the guns in this game getting more attachments is absolutely superb because it's the thing I want. But the thing that I do want is, I want them to have more character. And, I mean, just being able to give a gun 50 rounds, 60 round mags, maybe an 80 round drum is superb because I love the more bullets, the more I can do silly things. But it's also, the thing that really excites me is when they've gone into doing the barrels, when they've looked at the barrels and they've redesigned them, they've changed the iron sights, which is something that I saw Modern Warfare doing, and it was one of the things that I thought was one of the strongest feathers in the cap of that game, because iron sights are something that are very fond to me, and you'll notice I don't use them in Bad Business, and it's mostly because of the perspective on how they're zoomed, and it's also because a lot of them aren't that great. You know, they're very realistic, they mirror the actual optics in real life, but a lot of those optics aren't the most aesthetically pleasing to look at. And for me, in a video game, I want it to be art, I want it to be gun porn, I want it to look like the most sexy thing I'm staring down, and most importantly, it has to have the utility to let me see. And a lot of the optics in this game, they follow the realistic take, like Battlefield, where you ADS and then you can't see a damn thing, so you just put an optic on and you forget they even had iron sights. And you might not know this if you're a Bad Business viewer, which I've got like 3 of those. I never used to really use optics on things unless the irons were bad, because I feel like it's a wasted attachment, whereas in this game I run optics on everything. And the only iron sight I like is the Galil's redesign, which I think is really, really nice, but it's a little bit too zoomed out for it to be as useful as I would like. And then we come to this, which is the M16's iron sights, which I don't really like them. They're not the worst in the world, but they're not the utility that I need to do the kind of damage I want to do on a server. So I'm not going to say they're bad, because iron sights are subjective. There are people that will probably love this and probably use this and probably get a lot of success with it, but I'm just going to say they're not to my tastes. Especially the SCAR, man. Everybody knows what the SCAR sight should look like. You've played Modern Warfare 2, you've played Black Ops 2, SCAR, you've played Modern Warfare 3, hell. SCAR has a sexy iron sight. It is one of the most beautifully, aesthetically pleasing sights to stare down for function, utility, and effectiveness. And in this game, it's the same as that single-shot rifle, that like Keltec thing, which I put on one game and immediately took off because it's got huge visual recoil. But the idea of the barrels changing the iron sights is something I really love. I love the idea of giving up an attachment to make the iron sight really, really awesome, because that's a sacrifice and a risk I'm willing to take, and that leads the game into the risk versus reward situation. And at the moment we're seeing that a little bit with the illegal mod on the Keltec. The Keltec is a gun that is very dangerous if you know how to use it, but it's single shot, which is where the skill ceiling is. And then they've released this automatic mod that enables it to shoot automatically at its fire rate, and it's now become a very, very, very strong option if you can aim. And I love the idea of that. I love the idea of taking a pre-existing gun and giving it a new spin. And I would love to see them take the illegal mod and put it on every gun, but instead of changing it to fully automatic, they could make it so that it increases the fire rate by 10, 15, 18%, and they could make it a rapid fire attachment. And that way it would class as a perk, and it would take up a slot that you can't use steady shot or sleight of hand or whatever else you put on your builds. And I think that would be really, really, really cool. And you could make it so that maybe it increases the recoil a little bit. Hell, you could make it so that you can't run the same amount of gear as you normally can because of how strong it is as an option. So make it so that you can't carry a melee weapon. Can you imagine if there was an attachment that stopped you from carrying a melee weapon? I'd fucking love it. Do you know how many times I use my melee weapon? Never. If you ever see me use the melee weapon in this game, I'm either disrespecting a sniper or it's a fat-fingered click. And never press it. Ever. Because if I've got bullets in my gun, why would I? And I love the idea of sacrifices. I love the idea of enabling somebody to take on something strong, but it comes at a price. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.